Hello, hello, and welcome back to our Finding Better podcast. My name is John Suzuki, and I am your host. And this is where we share real life experiences and wisdom of people who have been there and done that in terms of finding better in their own lives, whatever it happens to be, so that you can learn from those lessons and perhaps use some of those lessons in your own life. I am thrilled that I'm joined today by Richard Ramos. Richard is the author of the new book, Parents on a Mission. And this is about finding better parenting, finding better parenthood, and helping to find better children. and it's wonderful. Richard, welcome to the show. Thank you for being with us on Finding Better.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, John. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. This is something that's near and dear to my heart. I've got two kids. I've got three grandkids, and it's parents on a mission. So tell us a little bit about the book, but mostly about your experience. And let's start there. Your experience that led you to writing this book.
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, Parents on a Mission, how parents can win what I call the competition. Other people may call it a war or a battle. It's all the same thing, a competition for the heart, for the mind, and the loyalty of our children. Because I just believe in today's America, our children, not only our children, all of us are being bombarded 24/7, 365 with a lot of negative, what I would call, anti-American, anti-Christian, anti-family, anti-parent authority messages from all over the place. And my goal is to help parents understand that it is a war out there. It is a battle. It is a competition for your child. That is the prize. The prize is, who is your child going to give the gift of loyalty to? And if you're taking that for granted, mom and dad, that is a huge mistake. That's what my book is all about. And then I talk about ways to go about winning that loyalty, and different things that we can do. But I did this, John, simply because I was an at-risk counselor many years ago at a junior
Uh-huh.
high. And um, I had all these kids. I had 50 kids on my caseload, and they were all, doing things we don't want kids doing. Some of them were in gangs. Some of them were using drugs. Some of them
Richard,
were.
Richard, where was this?
This is in Santa
In
Barbara
Santa
Junior High.
Barbara.
Yeah,
In
I live
Santa
in Santa
Barbara.
Barbara.
And Santa Barbara is not known as a bastion of gang violence and stuff like that, right? I
It
mean,
No, it's
Santa
not. I mean,
Barbara I know is pretty dang nice.
it's very nice, and it's a great community. And nowadays, this was in the early 90s. And in
Hmm.
the early 90s, there seemed to be a rise in gang activity even throughout the country. At that time, it's not like it was, but it's I grew up in Northeast Los Angeles, so the gangs here are not, don't even
Yeah, yeah,
compare, don't
yeah,
even come
yeah,
close
yeah.
to what you're talking about. That where this is a bastion of tourism. It's not about that, but the
Right.
fact is there were those elements here, and so I was in the midst of that. And as I was listening to the kids on my caseload, after a while, I built a level of trust with them where I'm saying, look, don't come in here and waste my time. Basically, what I said in paraphrasing, why are you destroying your life? What's going on?
Yeah.
So after a while, they started to really open up to me. I knew at that point as a young parent, I couldn't just buy into everything they were saying. So I decided on my own, I needed to go talk to their parents. And that's when things changed for me. That's what the light went on. I had a paradigm shift of, here I am trying to help these kids, build them up, encourage them, inspire them. But then I went to their home and I saw what they were going home to every day.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
was completely defeating what I was trying to do, the dysfunction, the lack of respect, lack of communication, lack of authority, all of those things. And I said to myself, man, if I want to help these students, I need to help mom and dad.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's pause there for a second. because I agree with you, Richard. In fact, I think I'm the guy that told you it's not a competition, it's a war. It's a
That's right.
war. It is. It
I just
is.
didn't want to out you as to being that guy, but you were the guy.
Yeah. And I really do believe it. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why I started this my Finding Better podcast to begin with, is because there's just the world is broken. It's really broken. And, I mean, I talk about being overwhelmed with messages of inadequacy. And
Mhm.
whether it be on social media, whether it be our friends, whether it be the social people that we hang out with, right? And there's just so much bad information going on out there. It's terrible. And
Well, look what's going on the campuses.
yeah, exactly, exactly. You look at what's going on. There's just so much division. And yeah, I'd love to talk about the whole thing with me that I believe is that it starts at home. It starts at home. In fact, Denzel Washington is one of my absolute favorite, and he may be my absolute favorite actor.
He's
Um,
mine. He's
yeah,
mine.
I love, and by the way, if you or anybody listening happens to know Denzel, I someday I'd just like to meet him and just shake his hand and say thank you. Not only do I love him, love the characters like Equalizer, right? I mean, helping the underdog and coming in and being the guy that's a hero. But I've watched his YouTube videos, and he strikes me as a man with very, very deep character.
Hmm.
And one of the things that he talked about was his childhood. And
Hmm.
Denzel said, "Listen, I had the benefit of having a whole family, of having a dad and having my mom there." And he says, and the one thing about about my friends is that those who didn't have dads, um, a lot of them ended up in prison.
Right.
They ended up in prison, and they ended up in a lot of trouble because they didn't have the support from home at home, and not having the support from home, kids are going to go someplace else to get that support, right?
Absolutely.
And whether it
Yes.
be gangs or
Yes.
something. And
Yes.
so I love how you frame this conversation, is being on a mission, and just I mean, you're working at the core. You really are working at the core of what's happening out there, and working to make that better.
Yeah, I believe that, John. First of all, I've always said for many years that, in my opinion, the best actor in Hollywood is Denzel Washington, bar
Well,
none.
that's not your opinion, it's your experience.
It's my experience, and he should have won so many more Oscars, but we won't go there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Henry David Thoreau said something that I always use a quote. He said, "For every man that is striking at the leaves of evil, there's always one striking at the root." And he's talking about society, and that's where I decided that I wanted to strike at the root. I'm sure are you aware of the story of the bodies that are floating down the river? Have you ever heard that
No,
story?
I might be, but share it with me
Quickly,
in the
just very
audience.
quickly, there's a guy who's going fishing at a river, and he's always there. But on this particular day, he sees a body floating down the river, and he jumps in, swims to it, and drags the guy and resuscitates him. But right as he's resuscitating him, he hears another screaming for help. He jumps in the river, does the same thing, and so this just keeps happening. After a while, he says, "Man, I need help." And so he goes and calls the community. He runs over there and says, "Hey, people are coming down." So it goes on and on and on. Eventually, you got a whole organization pulling these people out of the river, resuscitating them, and they just keep coming down. Well, eventually, one guy starts to leave, and the main guy says, "Hey, where are you going? We need all the hands we can get." He said, "Yeah, you do." He said, "But I'm going to go upstream because I want to find what the root of the problem is. Why and where are all these bodies
There you
coming from?"
go.
And so that's what I felt I needed to do. There's a lot of good programs, there's a lot of youth programs, there's a lot of efforts out there that are trying to help troubled youth, rebellious youth, but who is working where it starts?
I love that.
In the home.
I love that. I mean, all of us out there are striking at the leaves. We're striking at the leaves, right? And you're out there wanting to get to the root,
Right.
which is really, really wonderful.
Yeah, and that well-intentioned, most communities, when you're, I call it the outside in approach versus an inside out approach. When you have youth problems, gangs, violent, whatever it is, everybody wants to create a nonprofit organization that is going to deal with all these rebellious youth. And I say, well, rather than focusing on the problems that youth create, why don't we focus on the problems that create rebellious youth?
Yes,
That's where I say that's why we have to work with mom and dad,
that
because
is wonderful.
there's no, I don't know, I don't want to be mean about it, but the root of the problem of these young people that are just going down the wrong road is in the home. And a lot of it has to do with the broken home, as Denzel Washington said.
Yeah, yeah, and oh my gosh, you're kind of blowing the top of my head off. When you said working with the parents, we everybody thinks about working with kids, working with going out and trying to fix these people, right?
Right?
And fix the parents. We
Right.
gotta fix the parents.
Well, in my book, I talk about, John, about, I have a section in there on community building. What is community building? It's raising citizens. Where do citizens come from? Citizens go to church. They don't come from church. Citizens go to school. They don't come from school. Citizens go to work. They don't come from work. Citizens come from the home. And the question is, to parents, what kind of citizen are we sending into the community every day? What kind of citizen do we send to the neighborhood? Do we send to the schoolhouse? Do we eventually send to work? Where are those citizens coming from? They're coming from our home. And that is something that parents need to understand and wake up. Yes, you are raising your children, correct. However, they're also citizens of the community. And that's a key thing that parents need to understand, the responsibility that we have.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna uh at the risk of getting a moment of political, as much as I liked Hillary Clinton, and as much of a lot of things that she did that I liked, there was one thing that I really didn't like, and that was the whole "it takes a village." You know, and I remember way back when we were talking about it, thinking to myself, it does not take a village. It takes parents, and it takes a village to support the parents, right?
That's right.
And when you say and when people think to themselves, well, gosh, it takes a village, you're you're giving up, you're surrendering your
Right.
responsibility, and you're
That's
saying,
right.
hey, you know what? It's not my job to teach our kids values. It's, the school will do it. The school will do it, and they'll get values. And for me, and I think you agree with that, to your thesis that it all starts at home. It
That's right.
starts at home. And we can build the village as a community to support the family. It's not the other way around, right?
Oh, that's the
It's
problem. That's the problem, is that too many parents, that message, that's an African proverb that was meant for a different time and a different culture. Today, the truth is, we don't know who we can trust in the village. From the White House to the schoolhouse to the church house, we all know of all the abuses that have taken place in all of those places, and we don't really know who we can trust. And so
So
the
so
village,
so
go
just real
ahead,
quick.
go ahead.
That is amazing because what I'm talking about I don't know, it was 20 years ago. It was a long, long time ago, right? And at that time, what you're talking about right now never even came into my mind, right? I
Mm,
thought, yeah, the schools are pretty good and all that kind of stuff, but still it takes parents, right? But to what you're talking about, whoa, right? I mean, when you think about today's world. So yeah, about I mean, who can you trust, right?
you trust. So that message, I talk about in my book that it does not take a village, it just takes parents, as you said. And that's not a message that parents today need to hear. As I said, when you consider what kids are being fed on social media, TikTok, Instagram, all the rest of it, television, movies, magazines,
Absolutely.
the lyrics of music, what can you really trust that your kids are being your values are being reinforced by all these entities and different things that are going on? And so sounding an alarm that we cannot trust the village. And the message that parents need to hear is not it takes them. No, it takes you. It takes you.
Exactly. Exactly.
I have one of my sons is a high school football coach, and he goes through this a lot of the time. The parents will call him, hey, can you talk to my son because he's not doing his homework, and we were arguing about him playing, and my son always tells him, he's I raised my so he tells him, no, that's not my responsibility. You talk to your son about homework and school. I'll deal with your son as far as an athlete playing football, but it's not my job to tell your son about doing his homework.
Boy,
But
that's tough love
parents,
right there.
that's right. And they
That's,
want coaches,
yeah,
priests, pastors, counselors, grandma, uncle. They want all of those people, and they abdicate their authority to all of those people. And that's why I say no, the it takes a village message is old, obsolete. It's not for our culture. Parents today, you need to hear it's your responsibility. And in my book, I talk about how that works, how it can happen, what are some tools we can have to win that loyalty that's up for grabs.
that is amazing. Yeah, and as you think about as I think about the world today, right? It's really hard. I mean, I you and I both grew up and life was hard, but I look at the world today and it's worse. It is so hard for kids to grow up because of some of the things that we've been talking about, right? And just the idea of adolescence or just the process of going through adolescence. I tell people, listen, your kids are little, they're 5 and 6 years old. Enjoy it because when they hit 11 or 12 years old, you go from hero to zero. And that's a best case scenario, right?
That's
All of a sudden, dads are, we're stupid, right? I mean, what do you mean you don't know all the stuff that my friends know? My friends are smarter than you. And it takes about 10 years of going through that process. And so even in the best case scenario, raising kids growing up is really tough. But as I
right.
look at the world today, it's even harder for parents because I mean, you look at inflation. I don't know how families survive. I really don't. I mean, it's crazy how hard it's gotten. Not only with the social influences and the technology that we're dealing with, but with economics and what's happening today.
Right.
So how do you coach parents? What are some of the things that you tell parents as they're trying to navigate this? Some parents are single parents. Some parents have to survive by having multiple jobs. I mean, you've experienced this. So
Yes.
what is some of the coaching you offer?
One of the things I teach, John, is called I call it the home field advantage. Having been an athlete, throughout much of my life, I like to use sports metaphors. And if you
You bet.
understand sports, you know what home field advantage means, that it's your field, it's your fans, and sometimes even the referee. But we
Yeah.
won't go there.
Yeah.
Um,
A lot of times, actually.
and so, you have an advantage. So what I teach parents, I broke it up into uh, as a statistic that you gave that I had done some research, because when parents used to ask me, the same question you just said, what can I do?
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
the time I didn't have a good answer when I was a young, I really didn't. It really bothered me. But when I did the research and I found that from 12 to 15, those are the years when kids began to make the choices that are
Yeah.
getting tracked. So I
Yep.
said, okay, if that's true, then from infant to 12, we have a 12-year window that should give us an advantage, the home field advantage, because 0 to 2 years, I broke it up into three phases. What should be happening in the life, mom and dad, for a kid from 0 to 2, from 2 to 5, and from 5 to 12? Okay, from 0 to 2, they don't care about sex, drugs, rock and roll, gangs. They don't care about any of that. So what should be happening? From 5 to 12, from 2 to 5, now you got a kid who's beginning to understand, wanting to take control, all those things. What should be happening? And then 5 to 12, now they're not in your care much. They're in school 9 months a year,
Right.
blah, blah, blah.
Right. Right.
So so from 0 to 2, that is the role of the gardener, I call it, the nurturer. That's a time of nurturing the soul, the self-worth, self-importance, self-esteem, stability, emotional connection, and attachment to parents. That's the role you and the advantage you have. From 2 to 5, now you're in the role of a trainer, teaching obedience, teaching respect, teaching authority, who's in control. Don't do that. Stop doing that. 3 years old, stop. Don't bite. Don't. And you're now in the role of a trainer. And then from 5 to 12, I call that the life coach phase, where now your kids are in school and they come home and you have a conversation and you're a parent on the sideline watching your kids in the game of life and you're coaching them. Don't say that. How did it go? What do we, and you're coaching them. And that final phase, I call it preparation for separation and infiltration, not isolation. And what I
Ooh,
mean by
say that again. Say that again. Say that again.
that, from 5 to 12, parents got to understand you're preparing your kids for separation
Right. Right.
and for infiltration, not isolation from society. So the preparation is I'm not raising my child to live with me for the rest of my life.
That's
I'm
right.
preparing them because life is a process of separation, separation from the womb, separation from the home, separation in marriage, separation in death. Life is a process of separation, and that's what I'm preparing my children for, to go out and establish their own life and their own family, etc. The infiltration part, I'm inoculating my children with integrity so they can deal with all the toxins in the environment, because you can't get rid of those toxins. You can't get rid of the news and all the things that we talked about, the social media, 24/7, all of it. Can't get rid of it. What can I do? I can I can immunize my child with integrity, with values, with honesty,
Oh
and
my
therefore
gosh.
when I send him out in the community, he's got an immune system to all that stuff that's going on, and it gives him a better chance to say no to all the pressure. And it's not isolation, because how's that going to help your daughter if I try to isolate her from how to deal with the world?
Right.
You're not building her immune system. When human beings are born, their immune system is not fully developed. They have to get sick. We have to get
Absolutely.
sick in order to
Yep.
build the immune system, right? So it's the same thing. You can't put your children helicopter parent and never allow them to experience failure and losing and falling down in life, because those are the things that are going to build their strength, build their character, and because you are building their integrity and their and values. So separation, preparation for separation is one phase. Then it's not about isolation, it's about infiltration. So I say infiltration, not isolation. So that's what I call the home field advantage. And if parents understand that from 0 to 12, you have a darn good chance. If you're nurturing, if you're training, and if you're coaching, you have a real good chance that your kids are, when they get to that age frame, yeah, they're going to make mistakes and do things, but for the most part, you've inoculated them with integrity, and that's what they're going to come back to as they get older.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Because when you think about it, and going back to Denzel, this is not a I love Denzel show. But he talks about the age 12, about the age of 12, you know, and he talks about it's not the system. It's not the system that is victimizing young black people or victimizing anybody. Um, they end up being part of the system. And I can't imagine that from where Denzel comes from that he would disagree with you. And I love how you broke it up, into those three phases up until the age 12, because by the time they get to 12 years old, like we said toward the beginning of this, you don't have the home field advantage anymore, right? And
Well,
hopefully, because they're
not
out
as
there
much.
meeting people on their own, doing their own thing, right?
That's right. That's right. And that's why I say parents should not take the loyalty of their children for granted. And you're just figuring, oh, they're my kids. Of course, they're going to be loyal to me. Well, not if you're not preparing them. There's got to be a preparation there, and you have the advantage of the kids are with you most of the time until the age of 12, 13. Then they start, like you said, getting out there. And if you've been preparing them for that, and you've been, immunizing them and that doing that, then you have a real good chance that, what's beautiful, John, is when a kid, a 13, 14, 15-year old, and I can say this about my kids, that they love being with you. They love being with dad. They
That's
love
right.
spending
That's right.
time with mom and dad.
Yeah, that's amazing. You were talking about the inoculation part of it, and I thought about an Uber drive that I had, an Uber driver from Somalia. And we were talking about Somalia and what it was like. And he goes, the kids in Somalia, they have really strong bones, almost impossible. You don't hear of kids breaking their bones in Somalia. I said, why? He says, well, first of all, he says, because we have a lot of sun there. And, the kids are out in the sun all the time. And he says, and the other thing, he says, they eat dirt. I said, what? He says they eat dirt. He says they're playing outside. They're eating dirt. The earth is part of them, and, and they're getting strength by not cleaning everything, but just by being dirty, and letting nature take its course. And I thought that was really interesting because here in the United States, we're almost phobic to the point of being clean. And, of course, with allergies and all that kind of stuff, you have to take a lot of precautions. But, not only does that example apply to physical health, but it applies to emotional health as well, mental health and everything. When you
Oh,
have parents inoculating and immunizing our kids and preparing them for
right.
the world that they're going to, you know, there comes a point in time when you just have to say, you know what, I hope I did my job,
Yeah,
because they're
that's right.
and I'm always going to be there for them. I'm always going to try to be there for them, but their life is theirs, and they're off to the races.
That's funny that John. Confession. I ate dirt when I was a little kid. Did you ever have a mud pie? I mean, I
Yes.
mean, I really, and I mean, in bit, not like, oh, the whole thing, but I mean, I remember doing that as a kid. I mean, I grew up in poverty, and you see, we do things like that, but it's just funny that you said that. I thought, wow, somebody finally admitted that the kids were over there eating dirt. I used to do that too. That's funny. Wow.
Yeah, we don't do that anymore.
No, no, no.
Maybe we
Yeah,
should. Maybe we should start a trend. No, no, I don't want to do that.
yeah,
There's
no,
too many
we'll
TikTok
get in
trends out
trouble,
there.
and yeah, we'll
Yeah.
get in trouble. And think about it now. Talking about getting a little political here. Let me just say this. Think about it during the COVID time. Where were you hearing about building the immune system from within? No, it was about outside in. It was about vaccination and all that. And that was supposed to be the answer. That was supposed to, if you
Right.
get
Right.
inoculated, you will not get COVID again. Obviously, we know by that would prove not to be true.
Yep.
But where was the doctors and politicians talking about build your immune system? Because that is what needed to happen.
Yeah.
That's, as we
Yeah.
know, herd immunity, etc. So anyway, it's the same. I use that metaphor because that's what's true. Here's another example I use, John. If you had a young person come to you and they were suffocating and starving at the same time, which need would you meet first?
That's a question to me.
Well, it's rhetorical.
Suffocating for sure. For
You
me.
so you have to relieve from the inside out. You cannot receive food or water from the outside in if you can't breathe,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
And
Yep.
so that's the emotional healing that needs to take place. That's the emotional healing. And so many parents, they need emotional healing. They're not dealing with the inside out there. So we come to these problems from the outside in with counseling and mental health and jobs and sports and counselors and tutors, all of these outside in trying to fix this kid when the whole time they can't receive it because they can't breathe. They have trauma in their life. They're being abused. They're being neglected. They're being
Oh
abandoned.
my
All of
gosh.
these things. But when those things are healed, and I've seen this. So this has been my life work. When those things get dealt with from the inside, I've seen gang members, people that were in prison, people doing awful things with their life completely turn it around when they had that inside out transformation. That hurt, that wound, that pain was dealt with. And now all of these, oh, I almost knocked this picture down. All of these things are now making sense. And they can receive the tutoring and the counseling and the mental health, and they can receive it because that inner need was met. If does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, that makes all the sense in the world. That makes these people are suffocating. These people are suffocating, and we're trying to throw food down their throats. And
You got
I mean that it's oh my gosh, Richard, this has been amazing. This has been amazing, and you have given me and my audience so much to think about. And the thing I love about you is that you bring it down in human terms and
Mhm.
you dumb it down. I mean, for guys like me, and it's just wonderful. I uh, to me when I raised my kids, of course you try to learn as best you can and read books and watch videos and all that kind of stuff, right? Um, uh, I wish I had your book. I wish I had your book. Growing up with as a young parent. And it would be awesome if, your book could be one of those mandated. You
Trying.
have to read
I'm
this book if you want to, if you're going to be a parent. That's awesome. That's wonderful. Listen, Richard, we're running short on time right now. I would love to have you back. But one last comment from you about, as we talk about finding better parenthood and finding better kids. Maybe it's not the kids part, but finding better parenthood. Last comment.
Yeah. First of all, my book's available on Amazon. They can find it there. Or if they want a PDF version, go to outskirtspress.com/POM. Outskirtspress.com/POM. And you could download a PDF version if you like. Last comment is this.
So, okay, hold that thought. So you're offering your book for free.
No, the PDF version is less expensive.
Okay, okay,
And
okay. Got it,
if you
got it,
go
got it.
to,
Okay,
you
just
can
want it.
buy the book at Outskirts Press or Amazon, but the
Got it.
PDF version is half the price.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, good. There you go. Okay, I just want to make sure we were clear on that.
yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. You know, it's my last comment is to parents. It's all about relationship not being right. Too many parents get hung up on being right. I'm the dad, I'm right, you're wrong. It's not about that. It's about relationship. And secondly, if we can just own up to our own mistakes and own it when we're wrong and actually look our children in the eye and apologize and ask for forgiveness when we're wrong, that goes a long way in winning the loyalty of your children.
Oh my gosh, that's another top of head blowing off thing. You know how important. I mean, that is so important, and yet you know what? As a parent, that's probably one of the hardest things for a parent to do because you are the parent. right? I don't need to ask for forgiveness. Are you kidding me? I ask for forgiveness every freaking day. I
Yeah.
mean, we're not perfect. And, yeah, you talk about and a single stroke of, I mean, imagine, for my listeners, imagine your child. Imagine his reaction when you say, I really, please forgive me. Oh my gosh. Right? I mean, try it. And you talk about one master stroke to kind of reset that relationship. Whoa. That's brilliant, Richard. Unbelievable. Okay, so listen, folks. Richard Ramos of Parents on a Mission. Check it out. Check it out. I'll tell you, God bless you, Richard. God bless you for what you're doing. God bless you for sharing your experience with the world, and love to have you back on sometime.
Thank you, John. I'd love to be back, and thank you for what you're doing as well.
Yeah, yeah, folks, check it out. Check it out. And if you're a young parent and you have young kids, you still have a chance. And if you're a parent thinking about, or if you're thinking about having kids, holy cow, what a great, great guidebook that can give you ideas on how to move forward.
And John, one last comment for any parents out there. If you have older kids and you're struggling, there's been a break in relationship. I speak about that as well. Maybe next time we can talk about that
I'd
instead.
love that. I'd love that. That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful because there are a lot of people who have, and you and I mean, I love you, Richard. I love you, man.
Likewise.
I'm not gonna keep going into this. So listen, folks, thank you for joining us. This is John Suzuki. God bless you. I love you, and we'll see you next time right here on Finding Better. Bye.